Today on Tanaka Homestead, I want to talk about the pros and cons of owning your own backyard chickens. Let's start with something very, very important to consider. You need to check the laws and local ordinances in your area to make sure you're even allowed to have chickens. Some places may not allow you to have chickens at all. Some may allow you to have chickens, but only a certain number. And other places may have restrictions on the type of chicken. For example, a hen is fine versus a rooster, of course, because they can be noisy, may not be. So before you get your flock or purchase anything big like the coop or the run, look and make sure that you are able to have them in the first place. First thing to consider, chickens are noisy, and this is in no particular order. They can be noisy, so you have to take that into consideration, especially if you live in a community and you have neighbors or you have neighbors close by. Roosters are especially noisy, but chickens themselves, they cluck and they make loud noises. They have certainly startled me in the morning and have caused me to get up earlier than what I wanted just because of their loudness. A lot of people say, oh, it's way cheaper. It's so much easier to have your own chickens. I mean, as far as costs and everything, but that's really not true. That's one of the cons. It tends to cost more to raise your own chickens, right? You have to buy the food, and it depends on how many you have as far as how much food you go through and how often. You have to buy the coop. You have to maintain the coop. If you purchase deodorizers and different things, I mean, there's a whole bunch that goes into it. So I would say that cost could certainly be a con. Chickens can also smell. That's another con, especially the droppings. I mean, they can be smelly. You do what you can to try to prevent that. There are deodorizers and whatnot. And of course, keeping the coop clean and well maintained helps, but chickens do stink. Cleaning and maintaining the coop, I mentioned that before. Salmonella exposure, although I've read the likelihood of salmonella exposure in your backyard flock is much less compared to those in factories where there are a whole bunch of chickens kind of running around and doing their thing. So it's good, I think, in that regard to have your own backyard flock, but you do have exposure. You have exposure to the eggs, you have exposure to the droppings. Rodents are another thing to consider. Rodents of all kinds are attracted to the feed that you give your chickens, so you have to be mindful that chickens can be mean, so you have to be prepared if you have any bullying going on in the coop, that you want to tend to that, because it's not fair to the one chicken that's getting pecked or stomped, which I've seen, not my chickens, but I've seen it done. There's definitely a pecking order, so you have to be prepared for that. Another con would be going on vacation, for example. I'm very fortunate. I have amazing neighbors who are willing to take care of my flock while the family and I are on vacation. But this is something you have to consider. If you're somebody that travels a lot and you don't have somebody that can come over and take care of your flock while you're gone, chickens may not be for you because they do need food and they need water. Now, if it's a short 2-day vacation, it'll probably be fine, but you don't want to leave the eggs in the coop. So it is something you have to consider. If you're a traveler, chickens may not be for you. And then another thing to consider, chickens don't lay eggs forever. So once you have your chickens and they stop laying eggs, you have to think, what are you going to do with those chickens? I mean, they live longer than what they produce eggs. So are you willing to take on extra chickens and feed them and take care of them if they're not producing? So the pros of owning your own backyard chickens. I mean, what I love the most is the animal welfare part. Now, a lot of people are concerned about how animals are treated and in these facilities, overcrowding and disease and this and that. It's nice to know what shelter my chickens are living in. It's nice to know what food they're being fed and what they're being exposed to. And when you have a small flock in your backyard, you control all of those elements. So it's nice to know where your eggs coming from, what your chickens are being fed, so you yourself know what you're putting in your body as far as the eggs. Chickens are extremely fun. I joke pretty often that they have better personalities than our dog Rose, whom I do love, but they will come to you, they respond to you. I mean, if I open the coop door, they come up and they want you to pet them. I mean, so it's not just some dumb old bird. They do have personalities and they do enjoy human contact. Chickens, if you see them out there, they're constantly pecking. They will eat insects, especially insects that have become a burden in the garden. But chickens can definitely help with pest management. The other thing to consider if you have your own backyard flock is reduction in waste. Now, you can't feed your chickens every table scrap that you have. You have table scraps and other things, leftovers that are okay to be fed. You can give them to your chickens. It reduces waste, so I like that. Nothing beats fresh organic eggs. As far as taste and the look of the egg itself, as far as the yolk and the white is different. So it's something that I definitely enjoy. I have mentioned it before about chickens tilling the soil. That's awesome. If you're a gardener, you can have your chickens do that for you, and it lessens the load on you yourself having to till the area that you want to plant. So definitely use your chickens to your advantage. I mentioned before a con would be the chicken droppings, but when you consider gardening and using, and if you have a compost, using those droppings for your garden or for your compost is awesome. And I tend to do that when I clean my poop tray. I will take all the droppings and the pine shavings and whatnot, newspaper, and I put it in my compost. So that's nice because it adds nutrients to that compost. It will add nutrients to the soil and you don't have to pay for it. Well, I mean, I guess you do indirectly pay for it, but those droppings are free. I am a huge advocate of owning your own backyard flock if you can. Like I said, if the laws allow it, you know, there are pros and there are cons to each. The cons that I mentioned, I mean, they are cons, and for some people it may make or break your decision to purchase chickens, but they're really not bad. I mean, even though I know what the cons are, they're not something that really hinder me. So if you're somebody that is remotely interested in owning your backyard flock, I say do it. And you don't have to start with a large flock. You can get a smaller flock. But weigh the pros, weigh the cons, and see what works for you. So hopefully this video has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching my channel. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button, and happy chicken raising. Bye-bye.